When the champagne spilled, everything changed. A broke waitress, a ruthless crime lord, one accidental collision that ignited a love story written in blood and neon. She should have stayed invisible. He should have killed her. Instead, he chose to save her, and that single choice shattered two empires, triggered a decades-old revenge plot, and forced them both to decide, can love survive when your entire world is built on violence? This is their story. Watch until the end. Hit like and comment your city so I can see how far this story travels. The rain came down like punishment. Lena Vale moved through Baumir's dining room with her head down, champagne flutes balanced on a tray that weighed more than her weekly paycheck. Her feet screamed inside cheap shoes held together with superglue and hope. 22 years old, and already she'd learned the most valuable skill in the service industry: how to become furniture, how to disappear while standing right in front of people who'd never see her anyway. The restaurant glowed with old money and new arrogance. Chandeliers dripped crystal. Marble floors reflected candlelight like frozen water, the kind of place where appetizers cost more than her monthly rent, and the clientele wore watches worth more than her entire life. Lena had been working double shifts for 6 days straight. Her manager, a perpetually angry man named Dennis who smelled like cigars and contempt, had made it clear that if she wanted to keep this job, she'd work whatever hours he assigned. No complaints, no excuses, no life outside these walls. So here she was, again, moving between tables like a ghost, refilling glasses, clearing plates, absorbing insults from people who never bothered learning her name. The private booth in the corner had been reserved for 3 hours. High-profile client, Dennis had warned her. Don't screw this up. Don't even look at him unless he speaks first. Lena hadn't planned on looking at anyone. She just wanted to finish her shift, collect her tips, and drag herself back to the shoebox apartment she shared with 2 other servers who worked different shifts so they never crossed paths. She'd sleep 4 hours, wake up, and do it all again. That was the plan. Then she stumbled. Her left shoe caught on something, a raised tile maybe, or just exhaustion given physical form. And suddenly the world tilted sideways. The champagne flutes launched themselves into space like crystal missiles. Time stretched out the way it does right before disaster, giving her just enough awareness to watch everything go wrong in excruciating detail. The champagne arced through the air in a perfect golden stream. It hit the man in the private booth square in the chest. For one frozen heartbeat, the entire restaurant went silent. Lena hit the floor hard, her palm smacked against marble. Pain shot through her wrists. Broken glass sparkled around her like malicious confetti. She could feel blood running down her shin where one of the flutes had shattered against her leg. But none of that mattered. What mattered was the man now standing over her, champagne dripping from a suit that probably cost more than her yearly salary, his expression completely unreadable. Kang Min-jae. She didn't know his name yet, didn't know anything except that every single person in the restaurant had suddenly found somewhere else to look. Dennis had gone pale behind the host stand. The other servers had evaporated into corners and doorways. The silence felt like something alive and hungry. Minji was younger than she expected, maybe 30, with sharp features and eyes that looked like they'd already seen too much of everything. His black hair was pushed back from his face. His jaw was tight. There was something unsettling about the way he held himself, like violence was a language he spoke fluently but chose not to translate. Lena waited for him to start shouting, waited for security, waited for Dennis to come running over and fire her in front of everyone. Instead, Minji reached down and caught her wrist before she could push herself up. His grip was careful, deliberate, not rough, but not gentle either. "When did someone last take care of you?" he asked. The question hit her like a slap, not because it was cruel, but because it was kind, and Lena had no idea how to process kindness from a man she'd just doused in $1,000 champagne. She stared up at him, bleeding and humiliated and so bone-tired she could barely think straight. What? Stand up." His voice was quiet, controlled, the kind of voice that didn't need volume to make people listen. "You're bleeding." "I'm fine." Lena tried to pull her wrist back. His grip tightened just enough to keep her still, not painful, just immovable. "You're not fine." Minja's eyes tracked the blood running down her leg, then moved to her face, really looked at her in a way that made her want to fold in on herself. "When did you last eat?" "I eat." That wasn't the question. Lena's throat closed up. She wanted to lie, but something about the way he was looking at her made dishonesty feel impossible. Yesterday morning, maybe. I don't remember. Minji's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind his eyes. Something that might have been anger, except it didn't feel directed at her. He released her wrist and straightened, turned to Dennis, who'd started creeping closer with an expression like a kicked dog trying to remember how to bark. I need your private office, Minji said. Not a request. Dennis practically tripped over himself, nodding. Of course, Mr. Kang, absolutely, whatever you need. Send up your first aid kit and food. Minji looked down at Lena again. Can you walk? She nodded because the alternative was admitting she might pass out if she tried to stand, and that felt like weakness she couldn't afford. Minji held out his hand. Lena stared at it like it might explode. I'm not going to hurt you, he said quietly. I'm going to feed you. Let me. Something in his voice made her believe him, which was possibly the stupidest thing she'd done all night, and that included dumping champagne on what was clearly a very dangerous man. She took his hand. He pulled her to her feet with surprising gentleness, keeping one hand on her elbow until she steadied. The restaurant slowly came back to life around them, quiet conversations resuming, silverware clinking against plates, the careful pretense that nothing unusual had happened. But Lena could feel every eye tracking them as Minji guided her toward the back hallway where Dennis kept his cramped office. She should have pulled away, should have apologized, cleaned herself up in the bathroom, and gotten back to work before she lost the only income keeping her off the streets. Instead, she let the stranger lead her through the restaurant like she was something valuable instead of something disposable. The office was barely bigger than a closet, desk buried under paperwork, filing cabinet that hadn't been organized since the restaurant opened, one chair that looked older than Lena. Minji shut the door and locked it. Lena's pulse kicked up. Listen, I'm really sorry about the champagne. I can pay for dry cleaning, or sit. He pointed at the chair. She sat. Minji shrugged out of his ruined jacket and draped it over the desk. His white dress shirt underneath was also soaked, clinging to shoulders that suggested he spent time doing something more physical than sitting behind a desk. He rolled up his sleeves with methodical precision, revealing forearms marked with scars that definitely hadn't come from office work. Someone knocked. Minji unlocked the door just enough to accept a first aid kit and a covered tray from one of the kitchen staff, then locked it again. He set the tray on the desk, pulled the cover off to reveal actual food. Not leftovers or mistakes, but a proper meal. Grilled salmon, roasted vegetables, fresh bread that still steamed. Lena's stomach tried to eat itself. Eat, Minji said. Not an order, a statement of fact, like gravity. I should get back to work. Dennis will survive without you for 20 minutes. Minji crouched in front of her, opening the first aid kit. Eat while I deal with your leg. Lena wanted to argue, wanted to maintain some shred of dignity, but the food was right there, and she was so hungry she felt hollowed out, and this man was already cleaning blood off her shin with antiseptic that stung like fury. She picked up the fork. The first bite almost made her cry. Not because it was fancy, though it was, but because it was food she didn't have to steal or ration or feel guilty about eating. It was just there, given freely, expected to be consumed. She ate like she was afraid someone would take it away. Minji didn't watch her, kept his attention on her leg, carefully picking glass fragments out of the cut with tweezers. His hands were steady, practiced, like he'd done this before for people who weren't supposed to get hurt but did anyway. You're good at this, Lena said between bites. I've had practice. He pressed gauze against the cleaned wound. This needs stitches. Can't afford it. I'll cover it. I don't need... Yes, you do. Minji looked up at her, and there was something almost aggressive about the kindness in his expression. You need stitches. You need sleep. You need to stop working yourself to death for people who don't give a damn if you collapse on their marble floors. The words landed like punches. True in a way that hurt. Lena set down her fork. You don't know anything about me. I know you haven't eaten in over 24 hours. I know you're wearing shoes held together with glue. I know you're so tired you can barely stand straight. Minji taped the gauze in place and stood. I know someone should have noticed before now. Why do you care? The question hung between them like something fragile and dangerous. Minji was quiet for a long moment, Then, because I remember what invisible feels like. Something about the way he said it, flat and honest and utterly devoid of self-pity, made Lena believe he actually meant it. This man who moved through the world like he owned it, who made people disappear with a glance, who carried violence in his bones like most people carried their phone, he understood what it meant to be unseen. "Who are you?" Lena asked. Min-jae smiled, and it wasn't a kind expression. "Someone you should probably stay away from." "Then why are you helping me?" "Because I'm selfish." He leaned back against the desk, watching her with that unnerving intensity. "And I want to see what happens when someone actually takes care of you." The words should have sounded creepy, should have sent her running for the door. Instead, they landed like a promise. Lena finished eating in silence while Min-jae made a phone call in rapid Korean, his tone shifting into something harder and more commanding than the careful gentleness he'd used with her. When he hung up, he turned back to her. "My car's outside. I'll take you to get your leg stitched properly. I have to finish my shift. Dennis can manage." Min-jae's expression made it clear this wasn't a negotiation. "You're done for tonight. I need this job. You'll still have it tomorrow." He held out his hand again. "Trust me." Lena stared at his outstretched palm. Every survival instinct she'd developed over 22 hard years screamed at her to refuse, to thank him politely and get back to work and forget this entire surreal encounter. But she was so tired, so hungry even after the meal, so desperately sick of being invisible. She took his hand. Min-jae pulled her to her feet and kept her hand in his as he unlocked the door. Led her back through the restaurant where Dennis watched them pass with an expression caught between terror and confusion. Out into the rain-soaked night where a black sedan waited at the curb, sleek and expensive and probably bulletproof. A man in a dark suit opened the back door. Min-jae guided Lena inside, then slid in beside her. The door shut with a sound like a vault closing. The interior smelled like leather and rain. The seats were heated. Classical music played softly through speakers Lena couldn't see. "Where are we going?" she asked as the car pulled away from the curb. "Clinic first, then I'm taking you home." "You don't know where I live." "You'll tell me." Min-jae looked at her, and there was something almost predatory about the calculation in his eyes. "Or I'll have someone find out. Your choice." It should have terrified her, should have sent up every red flag Lena possessed. Instead, she felt something she hadn't experienced in years. The electric thrill of being seen, really seen, by someone who looked at her and decided she mattered. "What do you want from me?" Lena asked quietly. Min-jae was quiet for a long moment. Rain hammered against the windows. City lights streaked past like neon wounds. "I don't know yet," he finally said, "but I'm going to find out." The clinic turned out to be a private medical office in a building with no visible signs and security that looked military grade. A woman in scrubs appeared the moment they walked in, took one look at Lena's leg, and guided her to an examination room without asking questions. Min-jae stayed the entire time, sat in the corner while the doctor, a tired-looking man who called Min-jae sir with the kind of deference usually reserved for heads of state, numbed Lena's leg and stitched it closed with efficient precision. 12 stitches. The doctor prescribed antibiotics Min-jae paid for before Lena could even think about asking the cost. Then they were back in the sedan, cutting through rain-slicked streets toward the part of the city where Lena lived. The buildings got shorter, the lights got dimmer, graffiti replaced boutique storefronts. "Here," Lena said when they reached her block. "You can drop me anywhere." Min-jae looked out at the crumbling apartment complex with its busted security door and flickering hallway lights. "Which floor?" "It doesn't matter." "Which floor, Lena?" Hearing her name in his voice felt dangerously intimate. "Third." "But you really don't need to." Min-jae was already out of the car. He opened her door and offered his hand for the third time that night. This time, Lena took it without hesitation. He walked her up 3 flights of stairs that smelled like mildew, and something that might have been urine, past doors covered in peeling paint and desperate notices about overdue rent, to the unit at the end of the hall where Lena's key stuck in the lock because the mechanism was half broken and the landlord refused to fix it. Min-jae watched her struggle with the key for exactly 5 seconds before taking it from her hand and jimmying the lock open with the kind of practiced ease that suggested breaking into places was a skill he'd perfected long ago. The door swung open on Lena's disaster of a life. Sleeping bag in the corner because she'd sold her mattress 2 months ago. Hot plate on the floor because the kitchen was being used by her roommate who wasn't home. Clothes hanging from a rope stretched between two nails. It was humiliating. It was home. Min-jae stepped inside like he was entering a palace, looked around with the same careful attention he'd given her leg. "You live here." It wasn't a question, but Lena answered anyway. "Can't afford anything else." "How much is rent?" "Why does that matter?" "How much, Lena?" She told him, watched his jaw tighten. "That's criminal." Min-jae turned to face her, and there was something almost angry about the way he looked at her. "You're paying that much to live in a place that doesn't have heat." "It has heat sometimes." Lena crossed her arms. "Look, thank you for tonight, for the food and the doctor and everything, but you don't need to. Give me your phone." "What?" "Your phone. Give it to me." Lena pulled out her ancient smartphone, screen cracked, battery dying, held together with a case that cost $3. Handed it over because at this point arguing felt pointless. Minji typed something, then called himself. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He handed hers back. "Now you have my number," he said. "Use it." "For what?" "Anything. When you need help, when you can't make rent, when you're too tired to remember if you've eaten." His expression was completely serious. "I meant what I said. I want to see what happens when someone takes care of you." Lena's throat felt tight. "Why?" "Because I'm curious." Minji reached out and tucked a strand of wet hair behind her ear, the gesture so casual and intimate it made her breath catch. "And because I think you're going to be dangerous for me." "I'm a waitress." "You're more than that." His thumb brushed against her cheekbone, gentle and deliberate. "You just don't know it yet." Then he was gone. Out the door and down the stairs before Lena could form a response. She stood in her disaster apartment listening to his footsteps fade, feeling the ghost of his touch on her skin and trying to convince herself this was real. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Lock your door, sleep, I'll check on you tomorrow." Lena stared at the message for a long time. Then she locked the door, collapsed onto her sleeping bag, and passed out still wearing her soaked uniform. She woke to pounding on her door 8 hours later, stumbled over to open it, half expecting Dennis coming to fire her. Instead, she found a delivery person with 3 large boxes. "Lena Vale?" the woman asked. Lena nodded, too confused to speak. "These are for you. Sign here." Lena signed. The woman left. Lena dragged the boxes inside and opened them one by one, her hands shaking. The first box contained food. Real food. Groceries. Fresh produce and bread and actual protein, enough to feed her for 2 weeks. The second box held clothes. Her size. Good quality. Nothing flashy, just practical pieces that actually fit. The third box contained a new phone. Top of the line. Already activated. One message waiting. "You're not invisible anymore. Get used to it." It's. Lena sat on the floor, surrounded by gifts from a man she barely knew. A man who'd seen her at her worst and decided she was worth something anyway, and for the first time in years she cried. Not from sadness, from fear. Because she had no idea who Kang Min-jae really was, but she was starting to understand that whatever existed between them was going to change her life completely. She just didn't know if she'd survive it. Her phone buzzed again. Different number this time. Longer message. "My name is Dennis. You're fired. Don't come back to Bomir. Mr. Kang has made certain arrangements regarding your future employment that don't involve my restaurant. Your final paycheck will be mailed." Then another message, Min-jae this time. "I bought Bomir 2 hours ago. Dennis doesn't work there anymore. Neither do you. We need to talk about what you actually want to do with your life. Meet me at the address below at 2 p.m. Don't be late." Lena stared at the messages, her heart hammering against her ribs. He'd bought an entire restaurant, fired her manager, sent her enough provisions to survive for weeks, all because she'd spilled champagne on him and he'd decided she was interesting. This wasn't kindness, this was obsession. And the most terrifying part was how much she wanted to see where it led. At 1:45 p.m., Lena stood outside a building in the financial district, wearing clothes from the box Min-jae had sent, feeling like she was about to step off a cliff. The address led to a private office 30 floors up, glass walls overlooking the city, furniture that cost more than her entire neighborhood. Minjae stood at the window, hands in his pockets, watching rain fall against the skyline. He didn't turn around when she entered. "You came. You didn't give me much choice. You always have a choice." Now he turned, and his expression was softer than she expected. "You could have ignored everything, thrown it away, blocked my number." "Why would I do that?" "Because I'm dangerous, Lena. I told you that." "You also fed me, got my leg stitched, made sure I didn't have to go back to a job that was killing me." Lena crossed her arms. "Dangerous people don't do that." "Dangerous people do exactly that." Minji walked toward her, closing the distance between them with measured steps. "Especially when they want something." "What do you want?" He stopped close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive and understated that made her want to lean closer. "I want to know who you are when you're not exhausted, when you're not invisible, when someone actually gives a damn about keeping you alive." "That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have." Minjae reached out and caught her chin, tilting her face up to meet his eyes. "I grew up in a world where people are tools, resources, numbers on a balance sheet. But you looked at me last night like I was human, and I can't stop thinking about what that means." Lena's pulse thundered. "So what now?" "Now you tell me what you want, and I make it happen." The offer hung between them like something beautiful and terrible. Lena could walk away. Should walk away. This man was clearly more than just wealthy. He was something darker, something connected to power that left scars and asked questions in locked offices. But she was so tired of being invisible, so desperate for someone to see her that she'd ignored every warning sign. "I want to understand why you care," she said quietly. Minjae's thumb brushed across her lower lip. "Then stay. Let me show you." "Show me what?" "Who I am. What I do. The world I live in." His expression was almost gentle. "And then you can decide if you still want to be seen by someone like me." It was a warning, a threat, an invitation. Lena knew she should refuse. Instead, she heard herself say, "Okay." Minjae smiled, and it was the first real smile she'd seen from him. Not kind, not cruel, just honest. "Then let's begin." He released her chin and walked to his desk, pressing a button on his phone. "Send him in." The door opened. A man entered, tall, broad-shouldered, with eyes that had seen violence and decided to make it a career. He nodded at Minjae, then looked at Lena with an expression that was pure assessment. "This is Lee," Minjae said. "He's going to be with you whenever I can't be." "A bodyguard?" Lena asked. "Protection," Minjae corrected. "Because the moment you became visible to me, you became visible to everyone who wants to hurt me. And I need to make sure that doesn't happen." The words settled over Lena like ice water. "What have you gotten me into?" she whispered. Minjae crossed back to her, caught her face between both hands, and looked at her with something that might have been regret or might have been hunger. "Everything," he said. And then he kissed her. It wasn't gentle, wasn't careful. It was possession and promise and warning all wrapped into one desperate moment where Lena forgot how to breathe. When he pulled back, her lips were burning and her thoughts were scattered like broken glass. "Welcome to my world," Minjae said softly. "I hope you survive it." The kiss changed everything and nothing at the same time. Lena pulled back first, her breathing uneven, her mind screaming warnings her body refused to hear. Minjae's hands were still on her face, his thumbs resting against her jaw like he was memorizing the shape of her bones. "I should go," she said, but her voice came out wrong, too quiet, too uncertain. "Where?" Minjae asked. Not challenging, just curious. "I don't know. Anywhere that's not here." "You don't mean that." "How do you know what I mean?" Lena stepped back, forcing him to drop his hands. "You've known me for 12 hours. Closer to 14. Minja's expression didn't change, and I know enough. You know I'm broke and desperate. That's not the same thing as knowing me. I know you're terrified right now. I know you want to run, but you won't because part of you is curious about what happens next." He tilted his head slightly. "I know you haven't been touched like that in a long time. Maybe ever." The words landed like slaps, true and invasive and unbearably accurate. Lena's hands curled into fists. "Stop reading me like I'm some kind of project." "You're not a project. You're a choice I'm making." Minji glanced at Lee, who'd been standing motionless by the door like a piece of furniture that could kill you. Give us a minute. Lee nodded and left without a word. The door clicked shut with a finality that made Lena's pulse spike. What do you want from me? She asked again, because the first answer hadn't been enough, and she needed something concrete to hold on to. Minji walked to a cabinet built into the wall, pulled out 2 glasses and a bottle of something amber and expensive, poured 2 fingers in each glass without asking if she wanted any. My father built an empire, he said, his back still to her. Real estate, shipping, manufacturing, legitimate businesses that make legitimate money. Okay. He also built something else underneath all that legitimacy. Something that runs on fear and blood, and the kind of loyalty you can only buy through violence. Minjae turned around, holding both glasses, offered one to her. I inherited both empires when he died. I've been trying to keep them separate. It's not working. Lena took the glass but didn't drink. What does this have to do with me? Everything, nothing. I don't know yet. He drank, watching her over the rim. I've spent 10 years maintaining this balance, being the respectable businessman in public, being my father's son in private. It's exhausting. And then you spilled champagne on me and looked at me like I was just a person, and something in me broke. That's not my fault. I didn't say it was. I'm just telling you why I can't let you disappear back into that restaurant and that apartment and that half-life you were barely surviving. Minjae set his glass down. You made me feel human for 5 minutes. I want to know what 5 days feels like. 5 weeks. 5 months. So I'm what? An experiment in your redemption arc? You're a choice. The first real choice I've made in years that has nothing to do with business or violence or maintaining my father's legacy. His eyes stayed locked on hers. But yes, being around you might make me better, or it might make you worse. We'll find out together. Lena finally drank. The alcohol burned going down, clearing some of the fog in her head. And if I say no, then Lee drives you home. I pay your rent for 6 months, so you have time to find something better. We never see each other again. Minja's voice was steady, honest. But you won't say no. You're that confident? I saw your face when I kissed you. You're just as curious as I am. He was right, and Lena hated him for it. Hated how easily he'd read her desperation and loneliness and the hungry, reckless part of her that wanted to see what happened when someone like her got close to someone like him. What happens now? She asked. Now I show you what my life actually looks like, and you decide if you can handle it. The rain had stopped by the time they left the building. Lee drove while Minjae sat in back with Lena, his phone buzzing every 30 seconds with messages he'd glance at and ignore. They headed toward the industrial district where warehouses squatted like iron lungs against the skyline. The kind of place where shipping containers stacked 3 stories high and security cameras tracked everything that moved. Where are we going? Lena asked. A meeting. You'll observe. You won't speak unless someone speaks to you first. Minji's tone had shifted into something harder, more commanding. And if things get uncomfortable, you don't react. Just watch. Uncomfortable how? You'll see. The warehouse they pulled up to looked abandoned from the outside. Rusted siding, broken windows, graffiti tags covering every surface. But when Lee opened the rolling door, the interior was pristine, climate-controlled, well-lit. 20 men stood in 2 groups facing each other like armies before a battle. Minjae got out first. Lena followed, acutely aware that every single person in the warehouse had just stopped talking to watch them enter. One of the men stepped forward, 50s, gray hair, expensive suit, at odds with the industrial setting. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Mr. Kang, right on time. Mr. Park. Minja's voice had dropped into a register Lena hadn't heard before. Colder. Flatter. You said this was urgent. It is. We have a problem. Park's eyes slid to Lena, lingered long enough to make her skin crawl. Who's this? None of your concern. Everything about your business is my concern. We have an agreement. We have a temporary arrangement that's becoming less temporary than I'd like. Minjae didn't move, but something about his posture shifted, became more dangerous. What's the problem? Park pulled out his phone, swiped through screens, turned it around. The photo showed a shipping container with its doors blown open. Empty interior, scorch marks. Your shipment, gone. 20 million in product. Someone knew exactly when and where to hit it. Minja's expression didn't change, but Lena felt him go very still beside her, the kind of stillness that preceded violence. When? 4 hours ago. Port security cameras were disabled. Inside job. Park's smile sharpened. So either someone on your side is talking or someone on my side is getting greedy. Either way, you're responsible. I'll handle it. You'll do more than handle it. You'll find who did this and make an example. Park stepped closer, dropping his voice. Because if you can't protect our product, then maybe we need different partners. Younger blood. Someone who hasn't gone soft playing businessman. The threat hung in the air like smoke. Minji smiled. It was the most terrifying expression Lena had ever seen. All teeth and empty eyes. You think I've gone soft? I think you've been spending time with waitresses instead of managing your operations. Park's gaze flicked to Lena again. Distractions are dangerous in our line of work. She's not a distraction. She's motivation. Minji turned his head slightly. Lee moved so fast Lena barely tracked it. 1 second he was standing 3 feet away. The next he had Park pressed against a shipping container with a gun under his chin. The warehouse erupted. Park's men drew weapons. Minji's men drew weapons. 20 guns suddenly pointed at 20 different targets. And Minji just stood there, hands in his pockets, watching Park struggle against Lee's grip. Let me be very clear, Minji said, his voice barely above a whisper, but somehow carrying across the entire space. You don't question my commitment. You don't threaten my arrangements. And you sure as hell don't comment on who I spend my time with. Are we understood? Park's face had gone purple. He managed a nod. Minji gestured. Lee released him and stepped back, gun disappearing as smoothly as it had appeared. Park straightened his jacket, coughing. You're going to regret that. No, you're going to find out who hit my shipment, or I'm going to assume it was you testing my patience. Minji's smile widened. And you really don't want me to test yours. He turned and walked back toward the car without waiting for a response. Lena followed, her heart hammering so hard she could feel it in her teeth. The doors closed behind them. Lee started the engine. They pulled away while Lena tried to remember how to breathe. What the hell was that? She finally asked. Business. Minji loosened his tie. Welcome to the other half of my life. Those men had guns. Everyone has guns. It's about who's willing to use them. You almost started a war in there. No, I established boundaries. He looked at her and his expression was almost apologetic. This is what I meant about dangerous. My world doesn't have room for weakness. The moment people think you won't retaliate, they start taking everything you've built. Lena's hands were shaking. She pressed them against her thighs. You told him I was motivation. What does that mean? It means you're the reason I'm going to end this. All of it. The violence, the shipments, the agreements with men like Park, who'd cut your throat if it increased their profit margin by 0.5%. Minji reached over and caught one of her trembling hands. I told you. I want to know who I am when someone actually cares if I'm human. But to get there, I have to dismantle everything my father built, and that's going to get messy. Messy like people with guns messy? Messier. Lena pulled her hand back. Take me home. Lena. I said take me home. Now. Minji studied her for a long moment, then nodded to Lee. The car changed direction. They rode in silence. Lena stared out the window, watching the city blur past, trying to process what she'd just witnessed. The casual violence, the threats, the way Minji had shifted from the man who'd bandaged her leg into someone capable of ordering executions without blinking. When they pulled up to her building, Minji didn't try to stop her from getting out. I meant what I said, he called after her, about giving you a choice. Lena turned back. I don't think you know how to give anyone a choice. You just take what you want and call it something prettier. The words hit him. She could see it in the way his expression tightened. Maybe, he said quietly, but I'm trying to be different with you. Try harder. She went inside before he could respond. Climbed the 3 flights, locked herself in her apartment, and sat on the floor surrounded by the groceries and clothes and phone he'd given her. Evidence of his obsession. Proof that he could reach her whenever he wanted. She should throw it all away. Should block his number and disappear into a different part of the city where men like Kang Min-jae didn't exist. Instead, she pulled out the phone and stared at his contact, her thumb hovering over the call button. The phone rang before she could decide. Unknown number. Lena answered without thinking. Hello? Lena Vale? Woman's voice, young, controlled. Who is this? Someone who wants to help you. You need to stay away from Kang Min-jae. Lena's pulse kicked up. How did you get this number? That doesn't matter. What matters is that you're in danger. Min-jae isn't who you think he is. I know exactly who he is. No, you know what he wants you to see. The woman's voice dropped lower. His father destroyed families. Entire bloodlines erased because they got in his way, and Min-jae inherited all of it. The violence, the cruelty, the absolute certainty that people are just resources to be used and discarded. Why are you telling me this? Because you seem like someone who deserves better than becoming collateral damage in a war you don't understand. The line went dead. Lena sat holding the phone, her mind racing. She should have felt afraid, should have taken the warning seriously. Instead, she felt angry. She called Min-jae. He picked up on the first ring. Lena? Someone just called me. Woman. Told me to stay away from you. Silence. Then, what did she say exactly? Lena repeated the conversation word for word, heard Min-jae's breathing change on the other end. Damn it! Who was it? Someone from my past. I'll handle it. His voice had gone flat. Are you okay? I'm fine, but Min-jae, whoever she is, she knows things. About your father. About what you've inherited. Everyone knows things. It's how they use that knowledge that matters. He paused. I'm sending Lee to watch your building tonight. I don't need a bodyguard. You do now. Someone's trying to scare you away from me, which means someone thinks you matter, and if you matter to me, you're leverage. His tone softened slightly. I'm sorry, I should have anticipated this. Anticipated what? That bringing you into my life would put a target on you. Lena closed her eyes. This is insane. Yes. I should end this now, before it gets worse. You should. Min-jae's voice was quiet. But you won't. You don't know that. I know you called me instead of blocking my number. I know you're angry, but you're not scared. And I know you're the first person in 10 years who's looked at me and seen something worth saving. He exhaled slowly. So no, you won't end this. Not yet. You're too curious about what happens next. He was right, and Lena hated him for it. What happens next? She asked. I find out who called you. I make sure they understand you're untouchable. And then I start tearing down my father's empire piece by piece so I can build something better. He paused. With you. If you'll stay. That's not a plan. That's a fantasy. Then let's make it real. Lena opened her eyes, looked around at her disaster apartment, at the evidence of a life barely worth living, at the future stretching ahead of her, years of poverty and exhaustion and slow dissolution into nothing. Or she could choose danger, choose the man who decided she mattered, choose to believe that love could exist inside violence if they fought hard enough to protect it. Okay, she heard herself say. I'm in. Lena, but I have conditions. I'm not just going to be some protected possession you keep locked away. If I'm part of this, I'm actually part of it. I want to know what you're planning. I want to help. And if it gets too dark, if you become someone I can't recognize, I walk. No questions. No drama. Just gone. Min-jae was quiet for a long moment. Then, deal. Just like that? Just like that. I told you, I want to know who I can become with you. That means you get to hold me accountable when I start becoming my father. The words settled between them like a promise neither was sure they could keep. Lee's outside your building, Min-jae said. He'll stay all night. Try to sleep. What about you? I have work to do, people to find, conversations to have. His voice went cold again. Someone thought they could threaten you. I need to remind them why that's a mistake. He hung up before she could respond. Lena sat in the darkness, listening to the building settle around her. Somewhere below, Lee was watching her door. Somewhere in the city, Min-jae was hunting whoever had tried to scare her away. And somewhere else, someone was planning their next move. She should have been terrified. Instead, she felt alive for the first time in years. 3 days passed before Lena saw Min-jae again. 3 days where Lee drove her to a new apartment, fully furnished, security system, neighborhood that didn't smell like despair. 3 days where deliveries arrived with everything she might need and some things she didn't know she wanted. 3 days where she checked her phone obsessively, waiting for Minjae to call. When he finally showed up, it was 3 in the morning. She woke to the sound of her new security system disengaging and Minjae letting himself in with a key she hadn't given him. She found him in her kitchen, blood on his knuckles, his shirt torn, exhaustion written across every line of his body. "What happened?" she asked. "I found the woman who called you." Minjae ran water over his hands, watching blood swirl down the drain. "Her name is Jia Han. She works for me. Or she did." "Did you kill her?" "No, but I probably should have." He turned off the water, grabbed a towel. "She's been feeding information to someone, building a case against me, photographs, financial records, everything needed to either destroy my legitimate businesses or expose the ones that aren't." "Why?" "Revenge. Her mother is Hannah Huang, last survivor of a family my father eliminated 20 years ago." Minji's voice was flat, emotionless. "Jia spent her entire life infiltrating my operations, getting close, waiting for the perfect moment to burn everything down. Is she the perfect moment?" Minjae looked at Lena, and something in his expression cracked. "Apparently I am. The moment I brought you into this, I became vulnerable, and vulnerability is weakness in my world. So what now? Now I make a choice." He crossed to her, caught her face between his damaged hands. "I can send you away. Hide you somewhere Jia and her mother will never find you. Go back to being the monster my father raised and eliminate every threat with enough violence that no one else tries. Or I keep you close, make you so visibly important that attacking you becomes suicide, and I start dismantling everything publicly, announce I'm leaving the business, transferring assets, cooperating with investigations." His thumbs brushed across her cheekbones. "Basically, I burn my entire legacy to the ground and hope we survive what comes after." Lena's heart hammered. "That's not a choice. That's martyrdom. It's the only way out. Jia was right about one thing. I've become my father. The legitimate business is just cover. The real money comes from shipments and agreements and the kind of violence that leaves bodies in shipping containers." His voice cracked. "I don't want to be that anymore, but I don't know how to stop without everything collapsing." "So let it collapse." Minji stared at her. "You don't understand what you're saying." "I understand perfectly. You're trapped in something your father built. You hate it. It's killing you. So stop maintaining it." Lena pulled his hands down but didn't let go. "Burn it, all of it, and build something new. People will die. People are already dying. At least this way you're choosing who you become instead of just accepting what you inherited." The truth of it hung between them like something fragile and dangerous. Minji pulled her against him, buried his face in her hair. She could feel him shaking, exhaustion or fear or the weight of a decision that would change everything. "If I do this," he said quietly, "there's no going back. Every enemy I've ever made will come for me. For us. Then we fight them together." "You don't know how to fight. Then teach me." He pulled back to look at her, searching her face for doubt, finding none. "You're either the bravest person I've ever met or the most reckless." "Maybe both," Lena managed to smile. "But I'm not leaving, so you might as well let me help destroy the thing that's destroying you." Minji kissed her, desperate and grateful and terrified all at once. When they broke apart, his expression had shifted into something harder, more resolved. "Okay, we do this together." He pulled out his phone. "But first we need to deal with Jia and her mother before they strike first." "What's the plan?" "I'm going to give them exactly what they want." The next morning, Minji called a press conference. Every major news outlet, every business reporter, everyone who'd been watching his empire for years waiting for it to crack. He stood at a podium with Lena beside him, cameras flashing, and announced his engagement. Not just engagement, a complete restructuring of his business holdings, a promise to cooperate fully with any investigations into his father's activities, a commitment to use his wealth to undo as much damage as possible. It was a declaration of war disguised as a love story. And the moment the cameras stopped rolling, Lena knew they'd just painted the biggest target imaginable on both their backs. Minji's phone started ringing before they left the building. Threats, warnings, former partners demanding explanations. "How long do we have?" Lena asked as Lee drove them away from the chaos. "Before someone makes a move?" Minjai checked his phone, deleted another threatening message. Hours. Maybe days. Not long. Where are we going? Somewhere public. Somewhere they can't make us disappear quietly. He looked at her. I'm taking you back to Baumir, the restaurant where we met. I've arranged an engagement celebration. Everyone who matters will be there. You're using our engagement as bait. I'm using everything as bait. I want them to come for us where I can see them coming. His jaw tightened. And when they do, I'm going to end this permanently. Lena should have argued, should have demanded a better plan. But she could see the determination in his eyes, the absolute certainty that this was the only way forward. When? She asked. Tonight. 7 hours later, Lena stood in Bomir's ballroom wearing a dress that cost more than her old apartment, surrounded by people who smiled with their mouths and calculated with their eyes. Minji moved through the crowd like he owned it, shaking hands, making promises, playing the role of reformed criminal who'd found redemption through love. And Lena played her part, the woman who'd saved him, the reason he'd changed, the proof that even monsters could become human. But underneath the performance, tension coiled like a living thing. Lee and a dozen other security operatives positioned throughout the room, exits marked, cameras monitoring every entrance, waiting for violence that felt inevitable. The lights died at exactly 9:47 p.m. Emergency lighting kicked in, red and harsh, casting everything in shades of blood. Then the gunfire started. Lena hit the floor as bullets tore through crystal and marble. Screams erupted around her. Glass exploded. Tables overturned. Minjae was there instantly, covering her body with his, dragging her toward the kitchen while chaos consumed the ballroom. "Stay down!" he shouted over the noise. But Lena saw it. Across the room. Through the smoke and panic. A woman standing perfectly still while everyone else ran. Gray hair, cold eyes, gun raised and pointing directly at them. Hana Huang. And beside her, Jia. Both of them walking forward with the calm certainty of people who'd been planning this moment for 20 years. "Minjae!" Lena gasped. He turned, saw them. His expression went absolutely flat. "Get her out," he told Lee. "No," Lena grabbed his arm. "We stay together. This isn't negotiable." The explosion cut him off. The floor heaved. Ceiling tiles rained down. Fire bloomed in the corner where someone had planted charges. And through it all, Hannah kept walking forward, her gun never wavering. 20 years, she called out, her voice carrying across the chaos. 20 years I've waited for this moment. Minji pushed Lena behind him, his hands empty of weapons but his body positioned like a shield. "Your family was collateral damage, business decisions. My family was murdered, systematically, efficiently, while you watched." Hannah's smile was terrible. "Your father made you watch, didn't he? Made you learn how to erase people like they never existed. I was 10 years old. Old enough to remember, old enough to become just like him." She raised the gun higher, aimed at Lena. "So now you get to watch me erase someone you love. See how it feels." Time contracted. Minji moved. Lee moved. The gun went off. And Lena felt the world tilt sideways as Minji's weight drove her backward through a service door while bullets chewed through the space where she'd been standing. They crashed into the kitchen. Emergency alarms screaming, fire spreading, the building beginning to collapse around them as more explosives detonated. "There's a tunnel," Minji gasped, pulling her to her feet, blood running down his arm where a bullet had grazed him. "Under the kitchen. My father built it for emergencies. Move." They ran through smoke and falling debris, while behind them Hannah's voice followed, promising death and revelation and revenge. The tunnel entrance was hidden behind industrial refrigerators. Minjae hauled them aside with strength born from pure adrenaline, revealed stairs descending into darkness. "Go," he pushed her forward. Lena stumbled down concrete steps, Minji right behind her. Above them, Baumir died in flames and gunfire and screaming. 43 people would die that night. But Lena and Minjae made it to the tunnel's other end, emerging in an underground parking garage 3 blocks away, covered in ash and blood and the wreckage of their old lives. They collapsed against a wall, breathing hard, while sirens wailed in the distance. "She'll keep coming," Lena said. "I know. This won't end until one of you is dead." "I know." Minjae turned to look at her, and his eyes were hollow. "I'm sorry, I thought I could control this. Thought I could transition out without this level of violence. I was wrong. Lena caught his face, forced him to really see her. Then we finish it, whatever it takes. But we finish it together. Lena, I said together. You don't get to protect me by dying heroically. We either both survive or what? Or we make damn sure Hannah doesn't. The words hung between them, terrible and true and absolutely final. This was the point of no return. The moment where they stopped running and started fighting back. Where they chose violence over escape because escape was no longer possible. Min-jae pulled her against him, and they stayed like that while the city burned above them and their future narrowed to a single brutal question: who would survive the war they'd just started? They disappeared into the network of underground tunnels that webbed beneath Blackwater City like veins under dead skin. Min-jae knew every turn, every exit, every hidden passage his father had built for moments exactly like this, when the empire crumbled and running was the only option left. Lena's legs burned, her lungs screamed. Ash coated her throat with every breath, but she kept moving because stopping meant dying, and she wasn't ready for that yet. They emerged in an abandoned subway station 2 miles from Beaumere. The air tasted like rust and old urine. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting everything in sickly yellow. Min-jae pulled out a phone, not his regular one, something cheap and anonymous, and made a call. Spoke in rapid Korean. Listened. His expression went darker with each passing second. He hung up without saying goodbye. 43 confirmed dead, he said flatly. 17 critical. The entire building collapsed 20 minutes after we left. Lena leaned against a concrete pillar, her dress torn and filthy, blood on her hands that might have been hers or his or someone else's entirely. Hannah? Gone. Jia, too. They had an exit plan. Min-jae's jaw tightened. My security team is in pieces. Half dead, half missing. Lee... His voice cracked. Lee didn't make it out. The words hit Lena like physical blows. Lee who'd driven her to her new apartment. Lee who'd stood outside her building all night keeping her safe. Lee who'd been nothing but professional and careful, and now was just another body in the rubble. I'm sorry, she whispered. Sorry doesn't bring him back. Min-jae turned away, his shoulders rigid. Sorry doesn't undo the last 10 years of me pretending I could balance both worlds. Sorry is just another word for failure. This isn't your fault. It's entirely my fault. I knew what Hannah wanted. I knew bringing you into this would make you a target. I did it anyway because I was selfish and desperate and stupid enough to think love could somehow sanitize decades of blood. He slammed his fist against the wall. Once. Twice. Until his knuckles split open again. Lee died because I wanted to feel human for 5 goddamn minutes. Lena pushed off the pillar and grabbed his arm before he could hit the wall again. Stop! Why should I? Because breaking your hand won't change anything, and I need you functional. She pulled him around to face her. We can fall apart later. Right now we survive. Agreed? Min-jae stared at her like he was seeing someone else. Someone harder. Someone who'd crossed the same line he'd been living on for years. When did you get so cold? He asked. About 30 seconds after someone started shooting at me. Lena released his arm. Where do we go? I have a safe house, off the grid. My father built it for worst-case scenarios. He checked the phone again. But we need supplies first. New identities, cash, weapons. You have weapons stored somewhere? I have everything stored everywhere. That's how you survive in my world. Redundancy and paranoia. He started walking toward a service ladder. Come on. They climbed to street level and emerged in an alley behind a closed laundromat. The city looked normal here. People walking past on the sidewalk, cars moving through intersections, life continuing like 43 people hadn't just died 3 miles away. Min-jae led her through side streets to a storage facility, used a key card to access a unit on the 3rd floor. Inside was exactly what he'd promised. Duffel bags full of cash, passports with different names and faces, handguns wrapped in oiled cloth, burner phones still in packaging. How long have you been planning this? Lena asked. Since the day I inherited my father's empire. Min-jae pulled out 2 passports, checked the photos. I always knew there'd come a moment when everything collapsed. I just didn't think it would happen like this. He handed her a passport. The photo showed her face, but the name read Sarah Chen, American citizen, born in Seattle. The forgery was perfect. Sarah Chen, she said. For now, we'll burn these in a week and become someone else. He stripped off his torn shirt, revealing more scars than she'd seen before. Puckered bullet wounds, knife cuts, the evidence of a life lived violently. Get changed. There are clothes in the bag on the left. Lena found jeans and a plain black shirt that almost fit. Changed quickly while Min-jae did the same. When she turned back, he was loading a handgun with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd done it 1,000 times. He held out a second gun. You know how to use this? No. Then learn. He showed her the safety, the grip, how to chamber around. His hands were steady despite everything. Point, squeeze, don't pull. Aim center mass. Keep squeezing until the threat stops moving. Lena took the gun. It was heavier than she expected, colder. Holding it made something inside her shift, some final barrier between her old life and whatever came next. I killed a man once, Minji said quietly, packing supplies into a backpack. I was 15, my father's orders. The man had stolen from us. Small amount, few thousand. My father said it wasn't about the money, it was about the message. So he gave me a gun and told me to send it. Lena looked up at him. Did you? 3 rounds, center mass, just like I showed you? His voice was completely flat. He had a daughter, 8 years old. She was in the next room, heard everything. My father made me look her in the eyes afterwards so I'd understand that consequences spread like blood in water, touching everything, staining everyone. Why are you telling me this? Because you need to know who you're running with, what I'm capable of, what I've already done. He zipped the backpack closed. If we survive this, I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be better. But right now, I need to be exactly what my father made me, and you need to decide if you can handle watching that. Lena shoved the gun in her waistband. I already decided. Back in the tunnel. Stop asking me to leave. Something in Min-jae's expression cracked and reformed. Okay. They left the storage unit and headed for the safe house. Took 3 different cars, changed routes twice, moved like ghosts through a city that was already broadcasting news about the Bomir massacre. The safe house turned out to be a fortified apartment in a building that looked condemned from the outside. Inside was pristine. Reinforced walls, security monitors showing every approach, enough supplies to survive a siege. Min-jae locked the door and engaged the security system. 3 different deadbolts, electronic keypad, pressure sensors. How long can we stay here, Lena asked. As long as we need. The building's owned through shell companies that don't connect to me. Utilities are paid 2 years in advance. He moved to the monitors, scanning the feeds. We're invisible as long as we stay inside. And then what? Then I call in every favor I'm owed, find out where Hannah and Jia are hiding. End this before they regroup and try again. He pulled out his phone. The real one this time, not the burner. 47 missed calls, 33 messages, all from numbers he recognized. He turned it off and pulled the battery. They'll use this to track me if I'm not careful. Lena sank onto the couch. Exhaustion crashed over her like a wave. We can't run forever. I know. So what's the actual plan? I don't have one yet. Min-jae sat beside her, his movements heavy with fatigue. I'm making this up as we go. Reacting instead of planning, that's how you get killed in my world. Our world. Lena turned to look at him. You keep saying your world like I'm just visiting. I'm not. I'm here. This is happening to both of us. You didn't ask for this. Neither did you. You inherited it. There's a difference. She grabbed his hand, laced their fingers together. So we figure it out together. Find Hannah, find Jia. End the threat. Then we burn whatever's left of your father's empire and build something new. You make it sound simple. It is simple, not easy, but simple. She squeezed his hand. We survive or we don't. Everything else is just details. Minji pulled her against him. She could feel his heart hammering through his shirt, could feel the tremors running through his body as adrenaline finally began to crash. I don't deserve you, he said into her hair. Probably not, but you're stuck with me anyway. They stayed like that while the city moved around them and the news channels replayed footage of Bomir burning, and investigators tried to piece together what had happened. Lena woke hours later to find Min-jae gone from the couch. She found him in the apartment's small kitchen, staring at a laptop screen, his expression carved from stone. What is it? She asked. He turned the laptop around. The screen showed a video. Hannah Huang standing in front of a camera, her face calm and composed. "This is a message for Kong Min-jae," Hannah said. "You took everything from me 20 years ago. Now I'm returning the favor. But killing you would be too quick, too merciful. So instead I'm going to dismantle everything you've built, your businesses, your reputation, your legacy. And then, when you have nothing left, when you're as empty as I've been for 2 decades, then I'll kill the woman you love while you watch, just like your father made you watch my family die." The video ended. Lena felt ice water dump through her veins. When was this posted? 2 hours ago. Every news outlet has it. Every law enforcement agency. Every business partner and criminal contact. Minji's voice was dead. "She's not just coming for us. She's making sure everyone knows we're targets, turning us into prey. Can we trace the upload? Already tried, routed through a dozen countries. She's too smart to leave that kind of trail." He closed the laptop. "We're exposed, hunted, and I don't have the resources to fight back because half my operations just went up in smoke when Bomir collapsed. So we adapt. To what? Being fugitives? Living underground while Hannah systematically destroys everything?" Minji's control was fracturing. She could see it in the way his hands shook, the way his jaw clenched. "I should have killed her years ago. The moment I learned she was still alive. Should have finished what my father started instead of trying to be better than him. You're not your father. Maybe I should be. Maybe he had it right. Eliminate threats before they become problems. No mercy, no hesitation, just clean, efficient violence that removes obstacles permanently." The words hung in the air like poison. Lena stepped closer. "Is that what you want? To become the monster who made you watch people die when you were 10 years old? I want you to be safe. Then we find another way. Because the second you become your father, Hannah wins. She'll have turned you into exactly what she's been fighting against." Min-jae looked at her, and something in his expression was breaking. "There is no other way, not anymore. She made this personal, made it about revenge. And revenge only ends one way." His phone buzzed. The burner this time. He answered, listened, his face going progressively paler. "Understood," he said, and hung up. "What?" Lena demanded. "That was one of my remaining contacts. Hannah just released files to law enforcement, financial records, shipping manifests, photographs of every illegal operation my father ran and I maintained. They're issuing warrants, federal, international. I'm officially wanted for everything from money laundering to conspiracy to commit murder." He set the phone down carefully. "It's over. Even if I survive Hannah, I'll spend the rest of my life in prison." The words landed like hammer blows. Everything they'd been planning, the escape, the rebuilding, the fresh start, all of it evaporated like smoke. Lena grabbed the laptop, opened it, started searching, found the news reports, federal raids on Min-jae's properties, accounts frozen, warrants issued, his face on every screen with the word "wanted" beneath it. "We run," she said. "Leave the country, disappear completely." "And go where?" "I'm wanted internationally. Hannah made sure of that." Minji's voice was hollow. "She didn't just want me dead. She wanted me erased. Every connection severed, every resource eliminated. She's been planning this for 20 years and I walked right into it. Because you wanted to be better. That's not a weakness. It got 43 people killed and turned us into fugitives with no way out." He stood, paced to the window, stared at the city through bulletproof glass. "Maybe I should turn myself in, cooperate, give them everything in exchange for your immunity." "No." "You'd be safe." "I said no." Lena moved to block his path. "We don't split up. We don't surrender. We fight." "With what? I have no money, no resources, no allies who aren't already running from the same warrants." His control finally shattered. "I have nothing left except you and this apartment and the absolute certainty that Hannah is going to find us eventually." "Then we find her first." "How?" Lena thought fast, her mind racing through possibilities. "Jia? She worked for you. That means she knows your systems, your protocols, your safe houses. But it also means you know hers. Where did she live? Who did she talk to? Where did she go when she wasn't working?" Minji's eyes sharpened. "She had an apartment in the financial district, sublet under a different name. I only found it because I was investigating her after your warning call. So we go there. Search it. Find something that leads to Hannah. It's probably already been cleared out." Maybe. Or maybe they thought you'd be too busy running to investigate. Lena grabbed the gun from where she'd left it on the counter. Either way, it's our only lead. Minji stared at her for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, but we do this smart. No exposure, in and out before anyone notices. They left the safe house 2 hours before dawn when the city was at its emptiest. Moved through streets like shadows, taking alleys and service corridors, avoiding cameras whenever possible. Jia's apartment building was modern glass and steel, the kind of place where young professionals paid too much for too little and called it urban living. Minji bypassed the security with the same ease he'd opened Lena's broken lock. They took the stairs to the 7th floor, found Unit 714, picked the lock in 30 seconds. Inside was exactly what Lena expected. Minimalist furniture, bland art, nothing personal or revealing. The apartment of someone who'd never planned to stay. Search everything, Minji said. Documents, electronics, anything that might tell us where they went. They tore the place apart systematically. Checked drawers, cabinets, closets. Found nothing except generic clothes and basic supplies. Lena was about to give up when she noticed the bedroom closet was shallower than it should be. She knocked on the back wall. Hollow. Min Jai. He was there in seconds, pressed along the edges until he found the release. The false wall swung open to reveal a hidden space packed with equipment, laptops, hard drives, stacks of printed photographs, maps of Blackwater City with locations marked in red, and in the center of it all, a corkboard covered in photos and strings connecting them like a conspiracy wall. Most of the photos were of Min Jae. Surveillance shots, candid moments, years' worth of documentation. But some were of other people. Men in expensive suits, women at business dinners, faces Lena didn't recognize, but Minji clearly did, based on how his expression went absolutely cold. These are all my business partners, he said quietly. Everyone connected to my father's operations. Every person Hannah considers complicit. She's targeting all of them? Not just targeting, look. He pointed to several photos that had red X marks across the faces. These people are already dead. I thought they were unrelated incidents, heart attacks, accidents, overdoses. But if Hannah's been systematically eliminating everyone connected to what my father did, he stopped mid-sentence. Lena watched the color drain from his face. What? Minji pulled one photo from the board. It showed a young woman, maybe 25, dark hair, laughing at a restaurant. The photo was labeled with a name and address. And a date. Yesterday. Who is she? Lena asked. My half-sister. Minji's voice was barely a whisper. My father's daughter from before he married my mother. He kept her secret, supported her financially, but never acknowledged her publicly. I didn't even know she existed until I found the documentation after he died. And Hannah knows about her. Hannah knows everything. He pulled out his phone, dialed frantically. It rang and rang and rang. No answer. Minji tried again, same result. We have to go, he said, already moving toward the door. Now. They ran. Down 7 flights of stairs, out into pre-dawn streets, into a car Minji hotwired in 45 seconds. The address was across the city. Minji drove like physics was optional, running red lights, taking corners that made the tires scream. His face locked in an expression of absolute terror. They reached the building 20 minutes later. Small apartment complex. Older. The kind of place where people minded their own business and didn't ask questions. The door to Unit 3B was ajar. Minji went through it with his gun raised, Lena right behind him, both of them knowing what they were going to find but hoping desperately they were wrong. The apartment was destroyed. Furniture overturned. Glass everywhere. Blood splattered across the walls in patterns that told a story of violence and struggle. And in the center of the living room, cable tied to a chair with a single bullet wound in her forehead, was Minjae's half-sister. Her eyes were still open. On the wall behind her, written in her blood, was a message. Your father made you watch mine die. Now, watch yours. Minjae made a sound like something vital had broken inside him. He crossed the room, fell to his knees in front of the chair, reached out with shaking hands to close his sister's eyes. I didn't know, he whispered. I didn't even know your name until 6 months ago. I was going to reach out, going to try to... His voice fractured. Lena stood behind him, the gun heavy in her hand, watching Minjae shatter in front of someone he'd never gotten the chance to save. "This is my fault," he said. "I brought this down on everyone. Lee, the people at Bomir, now her. All of it because I couldn't just walk away from my father's empire when I had the chance." "This is Hannah's fault," Lena said quietly. "She's the one pulling the trigger. She's doing it because of what my father did, what I maintained." Minjae stood slowly, his movements mechanical. "And she's not going to stop until everyone connected to my family is dead, including you." "Then we stop her first. How?" He turned to face her, and his expression was utterly empty. "She's always 3 steps ahead. She knew about the safe house protocol before I did. She knew about my sister. She probably knows exactly where we're going to run next because she understands how I think better than I do." Lena's mind raced. "Unless we stop thinking like you." "What?" "You're reacting like someone trained in this world, following protocols your father taught you, using resources Hannah's already mapped." Lena gestured at the apartment, at the horror Hannah had staged. "But I'm not from your world. I don't think like a criminal or businessman or someone raised in violence, so maybe that's the advantage. We stop playing by rules Hannah expects and start doing things she can't predict." Minji stared at her. "Like what? Like using the fact that I'm nobody? Hannah's been watching you for 20 years, but she barely knows I exist. I'm not in her files, not in her plans. Just some waitress who happened to spill champagne at the wrong moment. You want to use yourself as bait. I want to use the fact that she'll underestimate me. Everyone does. I've been invisible my entire life. Maybe that's not a weakness anymore." The idea crystallized between them, dangerous and desperate, and possibly the only option they had left. "If this goes wrong," Minji started, "then we die together, instead of separately." Lena grabbed his hand. "But we make her work for it. And maybe, if we're smart and lucky and willing to do things your father never taught you, maybe we survive." Minjae pulled her against him, held her like she was the only solid thing left in a world that had become quicksand. "I love you," he said into her hair. "I know it's too soon, and I know I'm broken, and I know this is probably the worst possible time, but I need you to hear it before everything ends." Lena pulled back to look at him. "Then we make sure everything doesn't end." She kissed him there in his dead sister's apartment with blood drying on the walls and their future narrowing to a single impossible choice: become the monsters they were fighting, or die trying to stay human. Outside, sirens approached. Someone had called the police. In minutes, this place would be swarming with investigators, and they'd be trapped. "We need to leave," Lena said. Minji looked back at his sister one last time. "I'm going to kill her. Hannah, Jia, everyone involved in this. I'm going to stop trying to be better than my father and just end this the way he would have, violently and permanently. Okay? You're not going to try to talk me out of it?" "No." Lena's voice was steady. "Because you're right, this ends in blood. We've both known that since Bomir. I just needed you to accept it first." They left before the police arrived, disappeared back into the city's network of alleys and forgotten spaces. 2 people who'd been pushed past every line they thought they'd never cross. And somewhere in the darkness, Hannah Huang was waiting for them to make their next move. She'd spent 20 years planning her revenge. But she hadn't planned on what happened when you pushed desperate people into corners. She hadn't planned on what they'd be willing to become to survive. That was going to be her fatal mistake. They burned the car 6 blocks from the murder scene and stole another one from a parking garage where the cameras had been spray-painted over months ago. Minjae drove without speaking, his jaw locked tight, his knuckles white against the steering wheel. Lena watched the city blur past and tried to process what she'd just seen. The girl in the chair, the blood on the walls, the message written like Hannah was composing poetry with someone else's life. "Where are we going?" she finally asked. "Somewhere we can think." Minji's voice was flat, dead. "Somewhere I can figure out how to kill someone who's been 3 steps ahead of me for 20 years. You said I was the advantage, that Hannah doesn't know me. I said it? I don't know if I believe it." He took a turn too fast, tires squealing. "She knew about my sister, knew I'd find the body, probably has cameras watching right now to see how I react. She's not just killing people, she's orchestrating my complete psychological destruction. Then we stop reacting, stop playing her game." "There is no other game. This is the only one that matters." Minji pulled into an underground parking structure beneath a building that looked abandoned. "We're here." The building turned out to be an old industrial complex scheduled for demolition. Min-jae had keys to a service entrance that led to offices on the third floor, empty except for dust and broken furniture. Another safe house? Lena asked. My personal office, from before I inherited everything, where I used to come when I needed to think without my father's people watching. He moved to the window, looked out at the city. Nobody knows about this place. Not Lee, not my business partners, nobody. Hannah might. If she does, then we're already dead and it doesn't matter. He turned back to face her. But if she doesn't, this is where we plan how to end her. Lena set the gun on a desk that wobbled on broken legs. Okay, so talk. What do we actually know? Hannah wants me to suffer before she kills me. That's why she's eliminating everyone connected to my family instead of just putting a bullet in my head. Min-jae started pacing. She wants me isolated, broken, stripped of everything that gives me power or purpose. Then she'll take you from me while I watch, complete the cycle my father started. So we use that. Her need to make you suffer means she won't kill you immediately, which means she'll kill you first to maximize my pain. His voice cracked. That's not a plan. That's just delaying the inevitable. Unless I'm not where she expects me to be. Lena's mind was racing now, pieces falling into place. You said Hannah's been watching you for 20 years. She knows how you think, how you protect things. But what if we separate? Make her choose which one of us to chase? Absolutely not. Listen to me. If we stay together, we're one target. Easy to track, easy to corner. But if we split up, then you're alone and unprotected and dead the second she finds you. Or I'm bait that leads her into a trap. Lena stepped closer. Think about it. She wants me dead, but she wants you to watch. So she has to have both of us in the same place at the same time. If I'm somewhere else, somewhere public, somewhere she can't just execute me quietly, she'll wait until she has me too, which means she follows you and ignores me. Minja's expression was agonized. You're talking about using yourself as bait without any guarantee I can reach you in time. Do you have a better idea? He didn't. She could see it in his face, the desperate calculation trying to find another option and coming up empty. Where? He finally asked. Somewhere she'll recognize. Somewhere that matters. Lena thought hard. The original Bomir is gone, but you said you bought it. Did you own other locations? 3 others, all closed after the massacre. Too much bad publicity. So we use one of those. Announce that I'm there. Make her come to me. And then what? She's not stupid enough to walk into an ambush alone. Then we make sure it doesn't look like an ambush. Lena grabbed his arm. We make it look like I'm trying to negotiate. Like I'm scared and desperate and willing to trade something for my life. Trade what? You. I tell her I'll give her your location if she promises to let me walk away. Min-jae stared at her like she'd suggested they set themselves on fire. That's insane. It's the only move she won't predict, because you'd never allow it. Your entire profile is about protecting people you care about. You died inside watching your father kill families. You've spent 10 years trying to be better than him. Letting the woman you love negotiate with your enemy goes against everything Hannah knows about you. Because it's wrong. It's survival. Lena's voice went hard. And you said it yourself. We're past the point of trying to be good people. We're in the end game now. So either we do something completely unexpected, or we die doing what Hannah expects. The silence stretched between them like a blade. Min-jae turned back to the window. His reflection in the dirty glass looked like a ghost already haunting the building. If this goes wrong, he started, it won't. You can't promise that. No. But I can promise I'm not going to spend whatever time we have left running and hiding and waiting for her to pick us off one at a time. Lena moved to stand beside him. We take the fight to her. We make her react instead of plan. And maybe, we survive long enough to figure out the rest. Min-jae closed his eyes. I hate this. I know. If she kills you, then you kill her, and you live, and you tear down every piece of your father's empire like you promised. Lena caught his face, forced him to look at her. But she's not going to kill me, because you're going to be there to stop her. How can you be sure? Because you're the most dangerous person I've ever met, and Hannah hasn't seen that version of you yet, the one who stops trying to be better than his father and just becomes what's necessary to survive. The words hung in the air like prophecy. Minji pulled her against him and kissed her like it might be the last time, desperate and fierce and tasting like blood from where his lip had split during the escape from Bomir. When they broke apart, his expression had shifted into something colder, harder. "Okay," he said. "We do it your way, but I want you armed, trained, prepared for every possible scenario." "How long do we have?" 12 hours? Maybe less. He pulled out his phone, one of the burners from the safe house. "I'll set up the meeting, make it public enough that Hannah can't just disappear you, and I'll position backup, what's left of my people who aren't dead or arrested." "And you?" "I'll be close, watching, waiting for the moment she commits." His voice dropped. "And when she does, I'm going to end this permanently." They spent the next 6 hours planning. Minji made calls to contacts who owed him favors, the ones who hadn't been arrested or killed yet, arranged for surveillance, weapons, exit routes, contingencies stacked on top of contingencies. Lena practiced with the gun until her hand stopped shaking when she raised it, learned to chamber rounds smoothly, to aim without closing her eyes, to accept that she might have to pull the trigger and live with what came after. "Shoot for the chest," Minji told her. "Biggest target. Don't try for headshots or limbs. Just center mass. Keep pulling the trigger until the threat stops." "I'm not sure I can kill someone. You won't have a choice. Hannah's people won't hesitate. You do, you die." His eyes were hard. "So you decide right now. Are you willing to kill to survive?" Lena thought about Lee, about the 43 people at Bomir, about Minjae's sister with her eyes still open and that message written in her blood. "Yes," she said. "Good. Hold on to that. You're going to need it." They left the old office building 2 hours before the meeting. Minjae drove while Lena checked and rechecked the gun, her movements getting smoother each time. The Bomir location they'd chosen was in the commercial district, a 3-story building that had been a restaurant on the ground floor and offices above. Currently empty. Security system disabled. Perfect for a confrontation neither side wanted witnesses for. Minji parked 3 blocks away. "I'll go in through the back. Position myself on the 3rd floor with a rifle. You enter through the front at exactly 8 p.m. Hannah will either already be there or she'll show up within minutes. And if she brings an army, then I start shooting and you run." He handed her an earpiece. "Keep this in. I'll be able to hear everything. I'll talk you through it." Lena fitted the earpiece, tested it. Minja's voice came through clear and steady even though she could see his hands shaking. "I love you," she said. "Don't. Not yet." His expression was agonized. "Tell me after, when we're both still alive. Promise me you won't do anything stupid if this goes wrong." "I can't promise that." "Minja, if she kills you, I'm taking her with me. That's not negotiable." He grabbed her face between his hands. "But it's not going to come to that, because you're smart and capable and about to prove that being underestimated is the most dangerous thing Hannah could have done." He kissed her one more time. Then he was gone, disappearing into an alley with a rifle case slung over his shoulder. Lena sat in the car watching the clock tick toward 8 p.m. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Her palms were slick with sweat. The gun pressed against her spine under her jacket felt like it weighed 100 pounds. She could still run. Could start the car and drive until she hit a border and figure out how to disappear into a life that didn't include assassinations and blood feuds and men who'd been raised in violence. Instead, she got out of the car and walked toward the building. The front door was unlocked. She pushed through into darkness broken only by emergency lighting. The restaurant space was gutted, tables gone, kitchen stripped, nothing left except concrete floors and exposed pipes. "I'm here," she said quietly, knowing Minjae could hear her through the earpiece. "Good." His voice was steady, calm. "Move to the center of the room. Make yourself visible." Lena walked forward until she stood in a circle of dim light beneath a ceiling fixture that was still working. Pulled out her phone and typed a message to the number Minjae had given her, the one he said would reach Hannah through intermediaries. The message was simple. "I'm here. Let's talk." She sent it and waited. 1 minute passed. 2. 5. "Movement," Minji's voice said in her ear. 2 vehicles, black SUVs, front and rear entrances. Stay calm." Lena's pulse spiked. She kept her hands visible, away from the gun. The front door opened. Hannah Huang walked in, flanked by 4 armed men. She looked exactly like her video, composed, controlled, radiating the kind of cold certainty that came from decades of planning finally reaching fruition. "Lena Vale." Hannah's voice was almost pleasant. "The waitress who started this whole cascade. Do you have any idea how much chaos you've caused by simply existing?" "I have some idea." Lena forced her voice steady. "I've seen the bodies. 43 at Beaumere, one very personal message for Min Jae, and those are just the recent ones." Hannah walked closer, her men spreading out to cover the exits. "I've been killing people connected to the Kang family for years, slowly, carefully, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal myself." "And I'm that moment?" "You're the catalyst. The thing that made Min Jae vulnerable. Before you, he was contained, controlled, playing the roles his father taught him. But then you spilled champagne and suddenly he remembered what it felt like to be human." Hannah smiled. "That's when I knew I could finally destroy him completely. By killing me. By making him watch you die. Yes, that's the price for what his father did. Perfect symmetry." She gestured to one of her men. "Search her." The man moved forward. Lena raised her hand slowly. He patted her down, found the gun, pulled it free. "Armed." He handed the weapon to Hannah. "Nothing else." Hannah examined the gun. "Did Minji teach you to shoot? Did he think this would protect you?" "He tried." Lena kept her voice level even though her heart was trying to punch through her chest. "But I'm not here to fight. I'm here to negotiate." "There's nothing to negotiate." "I think there is." Lena took a breath. "You want Min Jae to suffer. I get that. His father destroyed your family. You've spent 20 years planning revenge, but killing me doesn't actually hurt him the way you want it to." Hannah's expression flickered. "Explain." "Minja's been trying to die honorably for 10 years, trying to atone for his father's sins. If you just execute me, you make me a martyr, make him the tragic hero who lost everything trying to be better." Lena forced herself to meet Hannah's eyes. "But if I betray him, if I trade his location for my freedom, that breaks him differently, makes him understand that love doesn't actually redeem anything. That he's still just his father's son, surrounded by people who'll abandon him. The moment staying becomes too dangerous." The silence that followed was suffocating. Hannah studied her. "You'd betray him to save yourself?" "I'm a survivor. That's what I do. I survived poverty and abuse and a life that tried very hard to kill me slowly. Minji was an escape, a fantasy, but fantasies don't hold up against bullets and blood." Lena's voice was steady. "So yes, I'll tell you where he is, and then I disappear. You never hear from me again." "She's lying," one of Hannah's men said. "Of course she's lying." Hannah's smile widened. "But it's a fascinating lie. Let's see where it goes." She walked closer, stopping just outside arm's reach. "Tell me where Min Jae is right now." "First you promise I walk out of here alive." "You have my word." "Your word isn't worth anything." Lena held her ground. "I want it in writing, a contract, something that protects me if you decide to change your mind after you have what you want." Hannah laughed, actually laughed. "You think a contract matters to someone who's spent 20 years planning murder?" "I think you're methodical, careful. You want this done right. That means keeping your agreements even when they're inconvenient." Lena's throat was dry, but she pushed forward. "So write it down, sign it, then I tell you everything." 3 blocks north, Minji's voice said quietly in her ear. 3rd floor of the old office building. "That's what you tell her. It'll buy us time while she positions." Hannah pulled out her phone, typed something, showed Lena the screen. A simple agreement promising safe passage in exchange for Minji's location. "Satisfied?" Hannah asked. "Send it to yourself. Create a time-stamped record." Hannah's expression sharpened. "You're smarter than you look. I learned from the best. Min Jae taught me that survival means documentation." Lena waited while Hannah sent the email. "Now I talk." "Now you talk." "He's 3 blocks north, old industrial building scheduled for demolition. 3rd floor. He's been there since we found your message at his sister's apartment." Lena kept her voice flat, factual. "He thinks I'm trying to negotiate. Doesn't know I'm giving him up." Hannah turned to her men. "Confirm." Two of them pulled out tablets, called up building schematics and satellite imagery. One nodded. Building matches description. No visible security. Easy approach. How many men does he have with him? Hannah asked Lena. None. Everyone's dead or arrested. It's just him. Weapons? A rifle. Maybe 2 handguns. Whatever he grabbed from the safe house. Hannah studied her face. If you're lying, I'll make your death last days. I'm not lying. I want to live. That's more important than whatever I felt for him. The words tasted like poison, but Lena held Hannah's gaze without flinching. Okay. Hannah gestured to her men. Take 3 teams, surround the building. I want him alive if possible, dead if necessary, but I want confirmation before you extract. The men moved immediately, speaking into radios, coordinating positions. Hannah turned back to Lena. You'll wait here until I have confirmation. If this is a trap, it's not a trap. It's self-preservation. Lena let exhaustion show in her voice. I'm done with violence, done with men who think they can save me. I just want to disappear and forget any of this happened. That's almost believable. Hannah's smile was cold. Almost. She walked toward the door, leaving 2 guards behind with Lena. Stay here, one of them said. Don't move. Don't try anything. Lena nodded and sank onto a broken chair, her hands shaking now that Hannah wasn't watching. She bought it, she whispered, knowing Min-jae could hear. For now. His voice was tense. But the moment her people reach that building and find it empty, she'll know. You have maybe 10 minutes before this goes bad. What do I do? The guard on your left has his weapon in a hip holster, right side. Safety's on, but you can see the red dot. The one on your right has a shoulder rig, harder to reach. Min-jae paused. Can you take them? Lena looked at the 2 men. Both were bigger than her, both were trained, both expected her to be a scared civilian who just sold out her boyfriend. I don't know, she whispered. Yes, you do. You're a survivor. That's what you told Hannah. So survive. Lena took a slow breath. Let her body sag like she was about to cry. I think I'm going to be sick. The guard on the left shifted. Don't! She moved, lunged forward and grabbed his weapon before he could react, ripped it free of the holster, thumbed the safety, raised it as both men reached for their own guns, and she pulled the trigger. The shot was deafening in the empty space. The left guard went down, blood blooming across his shoulder. Not a killing shot, but enough to drop him. The right guard's gun cleared his holster. Lena swung her weapon toward him, squeezed again. This shot caught him in the chest. He staggered backward, crashed into a concrete pillar, slid down, leaving a red streak. Lena stood there shaking, the gun smoking in her hands, 2 men bleeding on the floor, and the absolute certainty that she'd just crossed a line she could never walk back from. Move! Min-jae's voice cut through her shock. Hannah's people will have heard that. You have maybe 90 seconds before this building fills with armed men. Back exit. Now! Lena ran. Through the gutted restaurant space, past industrial kitchen equipment, toward the rear exit that Min-jae had told her about during planning. She crashed through the door into an alley. Min-jae was there, materializing from shadows, grabbing her arm and pulling her toward a car parked 20 feet away. Did I kill them? She asked. Probably. Get in. He shoved her into the passenger seat, slid behind the wheel, started the engine. They were moving before Lena's door closed. Behind them, shouts erupted, flashlights stabbed through the darkness. Then gunfire. Bullets sparked off concrete and metal. The rear window exploded inward, showering them with glass. Min-jae yanked the wheel hard right, taking a corner that made the car's frame groan. Are they following? Lena gasped. Yes, but we're faster. He glanced at her, his expression unreadable. You did good. I know it doesn't feel that way, but you survived. That's what matters. I shot 2 people. They would have killed you the moment Hannah confirmed you betrayed her. Min-jae's voice was hard. What you did was survive. Nothing more. Nothing less. They drove in silence while Lena's hands shook and the reality of what she'd done settled into her bones like frost. She'd killed someone. Maybe 2 someones. Pulled the trigger and watched them fall, and there was no taking it back. I can't, she started. Yes, you can. You have to, because this isn't over. Min-jae was checking mirrors, taking random turns, making sure they weren't being tracked. Hannah knows I wasn't at that building. She knows you betrayed her. and she's going to come for both of us with everything she has left. So what now? Now we stop running. Minji's expression was carved from stone. She wanted this to be personal, wanted me to suffer through watching everyone I care about die. Fine, I'll make it personal, but on my terms, not hers. What does that mean? It means I'm done playing defense, done trying to be better than my father, done pretending I can win this without becoming exactly what he raised me to be. He looked at her, and his eyes were empty. I'm going to find Hannah. I'm going to find Jia. And I'm going to kill them both before they can kill anyone else I care about. That's not a plan. That's revenge. Revenge is all I have left. The car filled with terrible silence. Lena understood then what Min-jae was really saying. He'd reached the end of trying to be human, reached the end of believing love could somehow sanitize decades of inherited violence. He was going to become his father, and she was going to help him do it. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Back to the beginning." Minji took another turn, heading toward the industrial district, to where my father kept his most valuable asset. The one thing Hannah doesn't know about, because even I barely knew it existed until I found the documentation hidden in his personal safe. What asset? Information. Names, locations, bank accounts. Every person my father ever did business with. Every dirty deal. Every buried secret. His voice was flat. He called it his insurance policy. Leverage against anyone who tried to move against him. I've been keeping it locked away thinking I'd never need it. But now I'm going to use every single piece of leverage to find out where Hannah's been hiding, and then I'm going to end this. Lena stared at him. If you release that information, you'll destroy dozens of powerful people, maybe hundreds. The backlash will be catastrophic. Yes, but it'll also smoke out every rat in the sewer, including Hannah. Minji's smile was terrible. She thinks she knows me, thinks she's been planning for every possibility. But she's never seen me desperate enough to burn down my entire world. That's about to change. They pulled into a warehouse district that looked like every other warehouse district in Blackwater City. Rusting metal buildings, broken security lights. The kind of place where questionable business happened and nobody asked questions. Minji parked behind a building that had condemned signs posted on every entrance. "This is it," he said, "my father's final gift. His insurance against the world turning on him." They got out. Lena followed Min-jae through a door that shouldn't have been unlocked but was, downstairs that shouldn't have been maintained but were, into a basement that shouldn't have existed but did. The space was climate-controlled and filled with filing cabinets and servers and evidence of a lifetime spent documenting other people's sins. "Welcome to my inheritance," Minji said. "Everything here is collateral. Photographs, financial records, proof that half the city's power structure is built on crimes they'd rather stay buried. And you're going to release all of it? Every single page, every single byte. I'm going to upload it to every news organization and law enforcement agency simultaneously. Create a tidal wave of investigation and prosecution that'll keep everyone busy for years." He started pulling files, scanning them, setting them aside. And while they're all scrambling to save themselves, Hannah will make a mistake. She'll have to. Because suddenly she won't be the only predator hunting me. She'll be hunted herself. "This is insane. This is war." Min-jae looked at her, and his expression was utterly empty. "I told you I'd become what was necessary. This is what necessary looks like." Lena moved to help him, pulling files and documents, understanding that they were about to unleash chaos on a scale that would reshape the entire city. And somewhere in that chaos, Hannah would emerge. One final confrontation. One final chance for all of them to destroy each other completely. They worked in silence for 3 hours, scanning documents, uploading files to servers, creating redundant backups scattered across different locations. When they finished, Min-jae sat back and stared at the computer screen showing thousands of files ready to release. "Once I hit send, there's no stopping this," he said. "I know. People will die, careers will end, families will be destroyed. I know. And Hannah will come for us with everything she has." "Good." Lena's voice was hard. "Let her come. I'm tired of running." Minji looked at her, really looked at her, and saw someone completely different from the exhausted waitress who'd spilled champagne 3 weeks ago. "What happened to you?" he asked quietly. "You happened. This happened." She gestured at the files, the evidence, the accumulated weight of decades of violence. I stopped trying to be invisible, started fighting back. And now I'm ready to finish this. Minji pulled her close, held her like she was the only thing keeping him anchored to anything resembling humanity. After this is over, he said into her hair, if we survive, if we somehow make it through, I want out, completely out. New identities, different country, a life that has nothing to do with any of this. Okay? Just okay? Just okay. Lena pulled back to look at him. But first we end her. We end all of it. And then we burn everything down and build something new from the ashes. Minji kissed her, desperate and grateful and terrified. Then he turned back to the computer and hit send. The files dispersed across the internet like a virus. Thousands of documents revealing decades of corruption flooding into newsrooms and police stations and federal agencies. Somewhere in the city, alarms were going off. Phones were ringing. Powerful people were waking up to find their worst secrets exposed. And somewhere in that chaos, Hannah Huang was realizing that her carefully constructed revenge plot had just been detonated by the one move she'd never anticipated. Total war. Minjae's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered on speaker. You just destroyed half the city. Hannah's voice was cold, controlled. Do you have any idea what you've done? I've leveled the playing field. Now you're not the only one hunting me. Everyone is hunting everyone. Minji's voice was flat. How does it feel to lose control of your own revenge? It feels like I underestimated you. That ends now. Good. Meet me. Bomir. What's left of it? Tomorrow at dawn. Just you and me. No men. No backup. We end this face to face. Silence on the line. Then, and the waitress? She'll be there too. Because you were right about one thing. This is personal. And personal means everyone involved watches how it ends. If this is a trap, it's not a trap. It's an execution. Question is whether it's yours or mine. Minjae's smile was terrible. See you at dawn, Hannah. Don't be late. He hung up. Lena stared at him. You just invited her to kill us. I invited her to try. There's a difference. Minji started gathering weapons from a cabinet Lena hadn't noticed. Rifles, handguns, ammunition. We have 8 hours to prepare, to position, to make sure that when she shows up, we're ready. You really think she'll come alone? No, she'll bring Ji-Ah. Maybe others, but it doesn't matter. He handed Lena a handgun, watched her check it with movements that were getting disturbingly smooth. Because I'm done running, done planning, done trying to be smart about this. Tomorrow we fight, and whatever happens after, we'll deal with it if we're still alive. They left the warehouse carrying enough weapons to start a small war, drove toward the ruins of Bomir where this had all started, and prepared for the dawn that would either end their nightmare or end them. The city moved around them, beginning to wake up to the chaos Minjae had unleashed. News reports starting to break, police sirens increasing, the sound of an empire collapsing echoing through empty streets. And somewhere in that collapsing empire, Hannah Huang was preparing for the same dawn. One final battle. One final chance for revenge or redemption or just pure survival. Lena checked her gun one more time as they approached the ruins. Are you ready? Minji asked. She thought about the girl she'd been 3 weeks ago, invisible, exhausted, barely alive. Thought about the woman she'd become. A killer. A survivor. Someone who'd chosen danger over safety because safety was just another word for slowly dying. Yes, she said. I'm ready. The ruins of Bomir rose ahead of them, charred steel and broken concrete, a monument to violence and the moment everything changed. Dawn was still hours away, but the war had already begun. Dawn came slow and red over the ruins of Bomir. Lena stood in what used to be the main dining room, now just twisted metal and scorched concrete open to the sky. Her breath made clouds in the cold morning air. The gun felt like it had always been part of her hand. Minjae was positioned 15 feet away behind a collapsed section of wall, rifle scope tracking the approaches. They hadn't spoken in an hour. There was nothing left to say that hadn't already been settled in the silence of preparation. Movement, Minji said quietly. East entrance. 2 figures. Lena's pulse kicked up, but her hands stayed steady. 3 weeks ago, she would have been shaking. Now she just checked her sightlines and made sure her back was to solid cover. Hannah Huang emerged from the rubble first, picking her way through debris with careful steps. She wore black, practical clothing that wouldn't snag or slow her down. No visible weapons, but Lena knew better than to assume she was unarmed. Jia followed 3 paces behind, younger, but moving with the same lethal grace. Her eyes swept the ruins constantly, cataloging threats, calculating angles. They stopped 30 feet from where Lena stood. "Just the 2 of you?" Hannah called out. "I'm disappointed. I expected more of a production." "This isn't theater," Minji's voice came from his position. "This is an ending." "Agreed." Hannah's gaze found Lena. "How does it feel, waitress? Being the catalyst that destroyed an empire? All those people dead because you couldn't stay invisible." "They're dead because you killed them," Lena said. Her voice was steady. "Don't put your revenge on me." "Fair point." Hannah took a step closer. "But you have to understand, I spent 20 years planning this. 20 years infiltrating, documenting, waiting for the perfect moment. And then you stumbled into Minji's life and suddenly he had something to lose. Something I could take away." "Except you couldn't." Minji stood, rifle still trained on Hannah. "Because she's stronger than you anticipated, smarter, more willing to do what's necessary to survive. She shot 2 of my men, I'm aware." Hannah's smile was cold. But shooting in panic is different from executing someone while looking them in the eyes. "Let's see if she can do that." Jia moved, one fluid motion drawing a handgun and pointing it not at Lena or Minjae, but at the ground between them. "Nobody has to die today," Jia said. Her voice was younger than her movements suggested. "We can end this differently." Hannah's head snapped toward her. "What are you doing?" "I'm tired, Mother. Tired of killing, tired of revenge. Tired of spending my entire life planning violence against people who didn't personally hurt us." Jia's gun hand wavered. "Minjae's father destroyed our family. Not Minjae. He was a child. He didn't choose this any more than I did. He maintained it, profited from it, became exactly like his father." Hannah's voice had gone dangerous. "Don't go soft now, not when we're this close." "Close to what? You've already destroyed everything he built. Release those files and now half the city's power structure is collapsing. We won." Jia looked at Minjae. "It's over. You lost your empire. We got our revenge. Can't we just walk away?" "No," Hannah said flatly, "because revenge isn't about destroying what he has. It's about destroying who he is. And the only way to do that is to take the woman he loves and make him watch her die, just like his father made me watch." The words hung in the cold morning air like smoke. Lena saw it then, the absolute emptiness behind Hannah's eyes. This wasn't about justice or even revenge anymore. It was about transferring pain, spreading the suffering that had hollowed her out until someone else felt equally destroyed. "I'm sorry about your family," Minjae said quietly. "I mean that. What my father did was monstrous, unforgivable. If I could undo it, I would, but I can't. And killing Lena won't bring them back. It'll just create more bodies, more people destroyed by violence that never ends." Pretty words from someone raised in blood. Hannah raised her own weapon, a handgun that appeared from beneath her jacket. "But words don't absolve you, only death does that." She fired. Minji moved faster than Lena had ever seen him move, his rifle tracking toward Hannah even as the shot echoed through the ruins. But Jia was faster, throwing herself sideways into her mother, knocking Hannah's aim off. The bullet meant for Lena sparked off concrete 2 feet to her right. Everything exploded into chaos. Minji's rifle barked. Hannah rolled away from Jia, returning fire. Lena dropped behind cover, her own weapon up, trying to find a target that wasn't moving or obscured by smoke and dust. "Jia, move!" Hannah screamed. But Jia stayed frozen in the center of the space, her weapon lowered, her face a mask of exhaustion and regret. "I can't do this anymore," she said. "I can't keep killing. Can't keep pretending this is justice when it just feels like becoming the same monster that hurt us." Hannah's expression twisted into something inhuman. "You're betraying me. Your own mother. For what? For them? For myself. Because I'm tired of being defined by what was done to us instead of who we choose to become." Jia looked at Minjae. "I'm sorry. For Lee? For everyone at Bomir? For your sister? I helped plan all of it, and I'll have to live with that. But I'm done. No more." "Then you're a traitor," Hannah said, She raised her gun and pointed it at her own daughter. Lena moved without thinking, stepped out from cover, raised her weapon. Don't! Hannah's eyes snapped to her. The waitress has teeth. How unexpected. I've killed for him already. Don't make me kill for her too. You won't shoot. You're not a killer. You're just someone playing at being dangerous. Hannah's gun stayed trained on Gia. Step aside or watch her die. Mom, please! Gia started. The gun went off. Gia crumpled, blood spreading across her shoulder. Not a killing shot, but close enough. Lena fired. Once, twice, 3 times. Center mass like Minji taught her. Hannah staggered backward, her expression shifting from certainty to surprise to something that might have been relief. She hit the ground hard, her gun skittering away across broken concrete. Minji was there in seconds, kicking the weapon further away, checking Hannah for other threats. Lena stood frozen, her gun still raised, smoke trailing from the barrel, watching Hannah bleed out on the ruins of the restaurant where all of this started. You actually did it, Hannah said, blood bubbling at her lips. Killed for him. Became what you had to become. How does it feel? Lena lowered the gun. Necessary. That's what we all tell ourselves. Hannah coughed, red spraying across her chin. That it's necessary. That we're different from the monsters we're fighting. But look at you now. 3 weeks ago you were invisible. Now you're a killer. Congratulations. You've learned what I learned 20 years ago. Survival requires becoming what you hate. I don't hate you, Lena said quietly. I pity you. Hannah laughed, the sound wet and dying. Pity? How generous. Tell me something, waitress. When you close your eyes tonight, will you see my face? Will you remember this moment? Because I can promise you it never goes away. The first person you kill stays with you forever. Then I'll learn to live with it. No. You'll learn to add more. Because that's what happens. 1 becomes 2, becomes 10, becomes too many to count. Hannah's eyes found Min-jae. Your father understood that. He stopped pretending violence had limits, just embraced what he was. You tried to be better, and look where it got you, standing in ruins surrounded by bodies with a woman you've turned into a killer. She was always a survivor, Minji said. I just gave her permission to stop hiding it. Is that what you tell yourself? Hannah coughed again, weaker this time. You destroyed her, took someone invisible and made her visible, made her matter. And now she'll spend the rest of her life knowing that mattering means blood on her hands. She died on the last word, her eyes going empty, her breathing stopping mid-exhale. Silence crashed over the ruins. Lena stood there staring at the body, the first person she'd killed while looking them in the eyes, while hearing their last words, while watching the life leave someone who'd had a name and history and reasons for the violence they'd committed. Lena, Min-jae's voice was gentle. Look at me. She couldn't look away from Hannah's empty stare. Lena, firmer now. You did what you had to do. She would have killed Gia, then you, then me. You saved us. I know, her voice sounded hollow. Doesn't make it feel any different. Movement behind them. Gia was sitting up, one hand pressed against her bleeding shoulder, her face pale but determined. Thank you, she said to Lena, for stopping her. I know nothing I say makes this okay, but thank you. Min-jae moved to Gia, checked her wound. Through and through, you'll live, but we need to get you to a doctor. No doctors, no hospitals. They'll have questions I can't answer. Gia struggled to her feet, swaying. I have a place. Off-grid. I can take care of it myself. You'll bleed out before you get there. Then I bleed out. That's better than prison. She looked at Hannah's body, at the woman who'd spent 20 years teaching her that revenge was the only thing that mattered. She was wrong, you know. About you. About all of it. You're not your father. Tried. That counts for something. Does it? Minja's voice was bitter. Look around. Everything I tried to build. Everyone I tried to protect. It's all gone. Burned to ash because I thought I could balance both worlds. You couldn't. No one could. That's not weakness. That's just reality. Gia started walking toward the exit, leaving bloody footprints. What you do now, that's what defines you. Not what your father built. Not what my mother destroyed. Just what you choose next. She disappeared into the ruins, leaving Min-jae and Lena alone with Hannah's body and the weight of everything that had happened. Lena finally looked away from the corpse, found Min-jae watching her with an expression she couldn't read. "I'm sorry," he said. "For what?" "For all of it. For pulling you into this. For making you—" His voice cracked. "For turning you into someone who has to carry this. You didn't turn me into anything. I made choices. Every step. Every moment." Lena moved closer, her legs unsteady. "I could have walked away, could have taken your money and disappeared, could have refused to be bait, could have not pulled the trigger. But I did all of it because I chose to, because being with you felt more like living than anything else in my entire life. Even now, after everything, especially now." She caught his face between her hands. "We survived. That's what matters. We survived and Hannah didn't, and now we get to figure out what comes next." Min-jae pulled her against him, held her like she was the only thing keeping him from falling apart. She could feel him shaking, exhaustion or relief or delayed shock finally catching up. "What comes next is we disappear," he said into her hair. "Completely. New identities, new country, new life, everything we talked about. What about your empire? The files you released? Let it burn. Let the investigators and prosecutors tear apart everything my father built. I don't want it. Don't want any piece of it." He pulled back to look at her. "I want to be nobody. Just another person in another city living a normal life with the woman I love. Is that enough?" Lena thought about her old apartment, about double shifts at Bomir serving people who never saw her, about the years of slowly dissolving into nothing while the world moved around her. Then she thought about the last 3 weeks, the terror and violence and moments where she'd felt more alive than she'd thought possible. "Yes," she said. "That's enough. As long as we're together." They left Hannah's body in the ruins, called in an anonymous tip so it would be found and processed, and eventually explained some of what had happened. Then they drove to Min-jae's final safe house, the one even Jia hadn't known about, and started the process of becoming different people. It took 4 months, 4 months of dyeing hair and learning new backgrounds and practicing signatures that weren't their own. 4 months of slowly severing every connection to their old lives while the city tore itself apart over the files Min-jae had released. Dozens of arrests, hundreds of investigations, the entire power structure of Blackwater City collapsing like a house built on sand. And through it all, Min-jae and Lena watched from a distance, 2 ghosts haunting the edges of a world they'd helped destroy. When they finally left, it was on a flight to Costa Rica using passports that identified them as Michael and Sarah Chen, a married couple from Seattle looking for somewhere quiet to start over. The beach house they rented was small. 1 bedroom, kitchen that opened to the ocean, no security system, no weapons hidden in walls, just a place where 2 people could pretend they'd never been anyone else. Lena woke on their first morning there to find Min-jae already outside, sitting on the sand watching the sunrise. She joined him, sinking down beside him, their shoulders touching. "How does it feel?" she asked. "Being nobody?" "Strange, quiet, like I'm waiting for something terrible to happen, and it just doesn't." He glanced at her. "How about you? Regrets? About leaving?" "No. About what we did? Yes, but regret doesn't undo anything, so I'm trying to just live with it." "Does it work?" "Sometimes. Less than others." She leaned against him. "I still see Hannah's face. Still hear what she said about the first person you kill staying with you forever. She was right about that. I know. I've been seeing faces for 10 years. Eventually you learn to make room for them instead of letting them consume you." Min-jae wrapped an arm around her. "We did what we had to do. Survived when we shouldn't have. That's going to cost us something. Question is whether we pay that cost alone or together." "Together," Lena said. "Always together." They sat there while the sun climbed higher and the ocean rolled against the beach. And somewhere thousands of miles away, their old lives continued burning without them. A year passed. Then another. Then 3 more. They married quietly beside the ocean with no guests and no witnesses except a local official who didn't ask questions about why 2 Americans wanted such a private ceremony. Lena learned Spanish, got a job at a small cafe where she wasn't invisible. She was just Lena, the woman with the kind smile who made excellent coffee. Normal. unremarkable. Exactly what she'd never been able to be in Blackwater City. Minji spent his days reading and walking the beach and slowly learning what it felt like to not carry his father's legacy like a weight around his neck. The nightmares came less frequently. The moments where he'd catch his reflection and see his father's face looking back gradually faded. They built a life that had nothing to do with violence or empires or revenge. Just two people who'd survived something terrible and chosen to become something better than what that survival should have made them. In their 5th year in Costa Rica, Lena discovered she was pregnant. The news hit them both like a physical blow. They hadn't planned for children, hadn't even discussed it. Children meant permanence, meant accepting that they weren't just passing through this borrowed life, but actually building something real. "Are you okay?" Minji asked, his hand on her still flat stomach, his expression a mixture of terror and wonder. "I don't know. Are you?" Terrified, but also... He stopped, started again. "I spent my entire life becoming what my father wanted, and then I spent years trying to not be him. But now I have a chance to be something neither of us ever managed to be." "What's that?" "Just a father, not a legacy. Not a monster trying to reform, just someone who loves their kid and tries not to destroy them with expectations or violence or the weight of what came before." Lena caught his face, made him look at her. "You'll be a good father." "How do you know?" "Because you've spent 5 years proving you can choose who you become, instead of accepting what you were raised to be." She kissed him. "That's the only qualification that matters." Their daughter was born on a warm October morning in a small hospital where the staff spoke broken English and didn't ask about the scars both parents carried. She was perfect, tiny and screaming and completely untouched by everything that had come before. They named her Hope. Not after family, not after anyone from their old lives. Just hope itself, the idea that maybe children could grow up free from inherited violence. That love could survive even the ugliest histories. That broken people could still choose to become something better. Minji held his daughter for the first time in a hospital room that smelled like antiseptic and new life, and Lena watched him cry. Not from sadness, from the overwhelming weight of realizing that he'd somehow survived long enough to hold something pure and untouched by his father's empire. "Hi, Hope," he whispered. "I'm your dad. I'm going to mess up sometimes, going to have bad days, going to carry things I wish I didn't, but I promise you'll never have to see the version of me that your grandfather created, that died in those ruins. You only get this version, the one trying to be human." Hope yawned and went back to sleep, completely unaware she'd just received a vow that would shape the rest of her life. They took her home to the beach house, spent sleepless nights learning how to be parents, made mistakes and corrected them, and made new mistakes. Built a life around this tiny person who needed them, but had no idea what they'd done to survive long enough to give her a chance. 2 years passed. Hope learned to walk, then talk. Then ask endless questions about the ocean and the birds and why the sky changed colors. She never asked about Blackwater City, never knew it existed. Her entire world was the beach and the cafe and her parents who loved her with a desperation that sometimes surprised them. One evening when Hope was 3, Minjae and Lena stood watching her play in the waves while the sun set behind them. "Do you ever miss it?" Lena asked. "The power, the resources, being someone who mattered." "Every day," Minjae said honestly. "And then I look at her and remember that the person I was couldn't have this. That version of me would have destroyed it trying to control it. So no, I don't miss it enough to go back." "What about you?" he asked. "Do you miss being invisible?" "Never. Being invisible was just another way of dying slowly." Lena slipped her hand into his. This is living. Messy and imperfect and sometimes terrifying. But living." Hope ran up to them, her arms full of shells she'd collected. "Look what I found!" They crouched down to examine her treasures, broken pieces of ocean-worn shells that she treated like they were diamonds. And maybe they were. Proof that beautiful things could emerge from violent processes if you gave them enough time. "These are perfect," Lena said. "Can we keep them forever?" Hope asked. "Forever," Minji promised. "We'll put them somewhere safe." They walked back to the house as darkness fell. Hope between them holding both their hands, chattering about her shells and the fish she'd seen and what she wanted for dinner. Normal, unremarkable, everything they'd fought so hard to build. That night after Hope was asleep, Min-jae and Lena sat on their porch listening to the ocean and the night sounds and the quiet rhythm of a life far removed from the one they'd left behind. "I got a message today," Minji said quietly. "From Jia." Lena went still. "How?" "The same encrypted channel we set up before we left. I check it once a year, usually nothing. But today—" He pulled out his phone, showed her the message. It was brief. "I'm alive, clean, working as a nurse in Manila, helping people instead of hurting them. Thank you for not killing me that day. Hope you found what you were looking for. Jay." "Are you going to respond?" Lena asked. "I don't know. Part of me thinks we should just let sleeping dogs lie, but part of me—" He stopped. She chose differently. Could have kept working for her mother, could have let us all die in those ruins. But she didn't. That means something. So respond. Tell her we're okay, that we made it. Lena leaned against him. Everyone deserves to know their choices mattered. Min-jae typed a brief message. "We made it. Found peace. Built something worth protecting. Hope you did the same. Stay safe. M." He sent it and deleted the app. One final severance from the past. "Is it really over?" Lena asked. "After everything, can we really just be done?" "It's over," Minji said. "The Empire's gone. The people who wanted us dead are dead. The files destroyed everyone connected to my father's operations. We're ghosts. And ghosts don't get haunted. They are the haunting. That's not as comforting as you think." He laughed. Actually laughed. The sound was rusty but real. "Fair point. Okay, new answer. Yes, it's over. Because we decided it is. And we're the only ones who get to make that choice." Lena thought about Hannah bleeding out in the ruins, about Lee dying at Bomir, about all the bodies and violence and moments where survival seemed impossible. Then she thought about Hope sleeping inside, about the cafe job that made her smile, about Min-jae beside her transformed from someone raised in violence into someone teaching their daughter about seashells. "Yeah," she said, "it's over." They sat in comfortable silence while the ocean rolled against the beach, and the stars came out, and the life they'd built around them settled into something that felt permanent. In the years that followed, Hope grew up healthy and happy and completely normal. She went to local schools, made friends, learned about the world in ways that had nothing to do with empires or violence or inherited trauma. Sometimes she'd ask about their pasts, why they didn't have family photos, why they never talked about where they came from, why her parents sometimes got quiet when news from the United States played on television. Minji and Lena had agreed on their story years ago. They'd been young and poor and desperate to start over somewhere new. Not lies, exactly. Just carefully edited truth. Hope accepted this the way children accept everything their parents tell them, as fundamental fact requiring no deeper investigation. She turned 10, then 15, then 18. By the time she left for university in San Jose, she'd spent her entire life believing her parents were just Michael and Sarah Chen, two Americans who'd fallen in love with Costa Rica and never left. She had no idea her father had once commanded a criminal empire. No idea her mother had killed to protect the people she loved. No idea that the quiet beach house she'd grown up in was the final safe house of people who'd been running from a war they'd barely survived. And that was exactly how it should be. On Hope's 18th birthday, Min-jae and Lena stood watching her drive away to start her own life. And they both cried. "We did it," Lena said. "Kept her safe. Let her be normal. Gave her a chance we never had." "We did." Minji's arm was around her shoulders. "And now we get to see who we are when we're not defined by protecting her. Just us. For however many years we have left." "Scared?" Lena asked. "Terrified. But also relieved. We made it. Against impossible odds and through violence that should have destroyed us. We made it." He turned to face her. "I love you. I know I've said it 1,000 times, but I need you to hear it again. Everything I am now, everything good, exists because you looked at me that first night like I was human. You saved me, and I'm going to spend whatever time we have left earning that." "You already have," Lena said. Every day, every choice, every moment you chose to be better than what you were raised to be. She caught his face. We saved each other. That's how this works. They went back inside the house that had become home, made dinner, watched the sunset, did all the normal things that normal people did. And if sometimes they woke in the night with memories of blood and ruins and choices that could never be unmade, they woke together. And that made the darkness bearable. Years passed, they grew older, their hair went gray, their bodies accumulated the aches and pains of age on top of the scars they'd carried from violence. Hope visited when she could, brought home boyfriends and girlfriends, and eventually a partner she wanted to marry, had a small ceremony on the same beach where her parents had married decades earlier. You two are everything I want my marriage to look like, Hope told them. Still holding hands after all these years, still looking at each other like you're sharing private jokes, still choosing each other every single day. Minjae and Lena smiled and said nothing about how that choice had been forged in blood and maintained through pure stubborn will to not let violence define their ending. On a winter evening when they were both in their 60s, Minjae and Lena walked the beach one more time. His steps were slower now, her breath came harder, but they still walked every evening, watching the ocean and remembering the people they'd been. Do you think we earned this? Minjae asked. This peace, this life, after everything we did. I think we survived, and that's all anyone gets to do. Earn implies there's some cosmic judge keeping score. There isn't. Just us deciding whether we can live with our choices. Lena squeezed his hand. Can you? Most days. The ones where I wake up next to you and remember I didn't die in those ruins, those days I can live with anything. Good answer. They watched the sun set, red and gold spreading across the water like blood being washed clean. I'm glad you spilled champagne on me, Minjae said. Lena laughed. Worst pickup line ever. It's true, though. That moment changed everything. Gave me a reason to try being human instead of just inheriting my father's empire and calling it destiny. You would have figured it out eventually. Maybe. Or maybe I'd have become exactly like him, died alone in some penthouse surrounded by wealth and empty of anything that mattered. He turned to look at her. You gave me a choice I didn't know existed. The choice to walk away. To build something new. To be someone better. That's the greatest gift anyone's ever given me. The greatest gift you gave me was seeing me when I was invisible, making me matter. Everything after that was just us figuring out how to keep mattering to each other. They stood on the beach holding hands while the ocean rolled and the sky darkened and the life they'd built around them continued steady and sure. No more violence, no more empires, no more running from pasts that wanted them dead. Just two people who'd survived the impossible and chosen to build something human in the aftermath. The story ended the way it should have ended all along, not with fire and blood and desperate last stands, but with quiet sunset and gentle ocean and the absolute certainty that they'd found what they'd been fighting for from the very beginning. Not power, not revenge, not even survival, just peace. And the understanding that peace wasn't something you inherited or earned or deserved. It was something you fought for, something you built brick by brick from the ruins of everything that had tried to destroy you. And if you were very lucky and very stubborn and very willing to choose it every single day, sometimes peace was something you got to keep. Minjae and Lena walked back to their beach house hand in hand, two ghosts who'd somehow managed to become human again, leaving nothing behind them except footprints in the sand that the ocean would erase by morning. A perfect ending for two people who'd learned that the most powerful thing anyone could do wasn't to inherit empires or execute revenge or become what violence wanted them to be. It was to choose who they became instead of accepting what they'd been born into. And they'd chosen each other. That was enough. That was everything.